What if one umbrella could destroy your future or save it? Zara Thompson had 30 minutes before the most important interview of her life. 3 years studying city planning. One chance to escape poverty. 0 backup plans. The old man stood shivering in Murphy's diner doorway, soaked to the bone. "Sir, take this." Zara pressed her only umbrella into his trembling hands. Thomas looked up, startled. "Oh no, dear. You'll get drenched. Everyone deserves shelter." She was already stepping into the rain. Thomas Whitmore watched this young black woman sacrifice her comfort for a complete stranger. He didn't know her name, didn't know she'd spent her last $5 on interview clothes, didn't know she was about to walk 6 blocks through a storm that would ruin everything. But he would remember this moment. Because tomorrow, when powerful people try to destroy Zara's dreams, Thomas Whitmore, father of the woman planning her downfall, would have a choice to make. Some umbrellas protect more than bodies. The coffee maker at Murphy's diner gurgled its last breath as Zara wiped down table 6. The morning rush meant survival, tips that paid rent, smiles that earned mercy from impatient customers nursing hangovers and grudges. "Order up!" Jimmy's voice cut through the breakfast chaos. Zara balanced 3 plates, grabbed the coffee pot. Table 12 hosted the same construction crew every morning. Carlos and his boys, hands scarred from honest work. "Usual suspects," she smiled, setting down eggs over easy. "You boys tearing down another building today?" "Nah, building up this time," Carlos replied. "Some fancy condos on 7th Street. Zara's smile faltered. 7th Street, Mrs. Martinez's apartment building, the community garden that fed 12 families. "Progress for who?" she murmured. "What's that, honey?" "Nothing. More coffee?" But Zara knew exactly what was happening. She'd mapped every development in Oakland, studied every zoning change. Those fancy condos would price out 3 generations of families. 6 hours later, she climbed 18 steps to her studio apartment. The ritual never changed. Count the steps, unlock 3 deadbolts, pretend the math would work this month. Bills spread across her fold-out table like tarot cards predicting doom. Rent, town $200. Utilities, $180. Tips this week, $340. The numbers laughed at her dreams. But beside the bills lay her real treasure, a battered notebook filled with sketches. Mixed-use developments with affordable housing, community spaces that preserved neighborhood character, transportation hubs connecting isolated areas. She'd drawn every street in East Oakland from memory, knew which corners flooded, which lots sat contaminated, which buildings could support additional stories. While her Berkeley classmates networked at coffee shops, Zara served coffee. While they did unpaid internships, she paid rent. Her laptop, 2016 MacBook held together with electrical tape and hope, illuminated 23 rejection letters. Same message, different letterheads. "Thank you for your interest. Not a good fit. Pursuing other candidates." But tomorrow's interview felt different. The city planning department. Real public service, real impact. She pulled up Google Earth, tracing downtown Oakland's development zone. Her finger moved across the screen, mentally redesigning intersections, imagining pocket parks where vacant lots festered. "Transit-oriented development with community input," she whispered to the empty room. "Mixed-income housing that doesn't push people out." Her grandmother's voice echoed in memory. "Baby, you see things differently. You see what places could become." At 8, Zara was redesigning school playgrounds. At 15, she'd mapped every bus route in Oakland, finding connections city planners missed. At 25, she could walk through any neighborhood and see its bones. What worked, what hurt, what healed. But seeing wasn't enough anymore. She needed to build. The alarm clock would scream at 4:30 a.m. 3-minute shower. Murphy's uniform, black slacks, white button-down, non-slip shoes that had walked 10,000 miles on cracked linoleum. Her interview folder waited by the door, Inside, resume, 3 recommendation letters, a portfolio of neighborhood proposals crafted between orders of hash browns and hope. Professor Lane had written, Ms. Thompson possesses an intuitive understanding of urban systems rarely seen in students twice her age. Her community-centered approach to development challenges conventional wisdom while remaining practically feasible. 23 rejections disagreed, but tomorrow someone will finally see what she saw. Someone would understand that the girl serving coffee had been studying their city, block by block, for years. Tomorrow, Zara Thompson would prove that expertise doesn't require a pedigree, just passion. And maybe, if she was lucky, an umbrella's worth of kindness returned. She closed the laptop, whispered a prayer to empty air, and tried not to think about the interview she'd almost missed, because kindness mattered more than ambition. Some choices echo forever, but she wouldn't know which kind until the echo came back. The Oakland City Hall building rose like a concrete cathedral, all angles and authority. Zara smoothed her blazer, borrowed from her neighbor, still smelling faintly of perfume she couldn't afford. Ms. Thompson? The receptionist's voice echoed across marble floors. They're ready for you. Conference Room B held 3 faces behind a polished table. Margaret Santos, Planning Director. David Kim, Senior Analyst. Janet Rodriguez, Community Liaison. Their expressions gave nothing away. Walk us through your vision for transit-oriented development, Margaret began. Zara's hands steadied. This was her language. East Oakland needs housing that serves existing residents, not displaces them. Mixed-income development around BART stations, with community input driving design decisions. She pulled out her portfolio, hand-drawn sketches of Fruitvale Station reimagined, affordable units above retail spaces, public art incorporating neighborhood history, green corridors connecting isolated blocks. You've mapped every development pattern in this district, David observed, flipping through her proposals. I live here. I know where the buses don't run, which corners flood, which lots have been empty for 20 years. Zara's voice gained confidence. Planning isn't about perfect communities. It's about improving the ones that already exist. Janet leaned forward. What's your stance on the 7th Street project? A test question. Zara chose honesty. Luxury condos that ignore community needs. 12 families will lose their homes, so developers can market authentic Oakland living to tech workers. The panel exchanged glances. Unreadable. Thank you, Ms. Thompson. We'll be in touch. 48 hours later, the letter arrived. City seal embossed in gold, official weight that made her hands shake. Dear Ms. Thompson, after careful consideration, we regret to inform you that your application for the junior planning analyst position has been declined. During our review process, character concerns were raised that make you unsuitable for public service. Character concerns. Zara read the phrase until it blurred. No specifics, no accusations, no appeals process mentioned. She'd never gotten a parking ticket, never missed a payment, never lied on an application. Her credit score was pristine, her background check spotless. Character concerns. Monday morning found her in the planning department lobby, letter clutched like evidence of a crime she didn't commit. I need to speak with Margaret Santos about my application. The receptionist barely looked up. Ms. Santos doesn't discuss personnel decisions. But there's been a mistake. The letter mentions character concerns but doesn't specify, I can schedule you with human resources. Human resources meant a windowless office and Patricia Webb, whose smile was professional ice. Ms. Thompson, I understand your disappointment, but our decision is final. What character concerns? I have the right to know what accusations. No accusations were made. The selection committee simply felt you weren't the right fit. But you wrote, character concerns. That implies something specific. Patricia's smile never wavered. I'm not privy to the committee's internal discussions. Then who is? The decision-makers aren't available for comment. Brick wall. Bureaucratic politeness masking something darker. Zara tried a different angle. Can I reapply next quarter? Of course. Though I'd encourage you to address any underlying issues before submitting another application. What underlying issues? That's for you to determine. The conversation felt choreographed, practiced, like Patricia had given this speech before. Outside City Hall, Zara sat on concrete steps, studying the rejection letter. The language was too careful, too vague. Someone had vetoed her application without fingerprints. But who and why? Her phone buzzed. Text from Carlos. Hey girl, heard about the city job. That's messed up. You know more about Oakland than half of those suits. News traveled fast in small communities. By evening, Murphy's regulars were offering condolences like she'd suffered a death in the family. Maybe she had. That night, Zara spread her bills across the table again. Same math, worse prospects. Without the city job, she'd be slinging coffee until her hands gave out or her spirit broke. But anger felt cleaner than despair. Someone had stolen her future with 2 words: character concerns. Someone powerful enough to influence hiring decisions. Someone who wanted her silenced. Zara stared at her neighborhood sketches, years of dreams reduced to hobby art. Not anymore. Someone had just made this personal, and Zara Thompson was done being polite about it. Thursday afternoon at Murphy's brought the usual suspects: construction crews, office workers grabbing coffee, retirees nursing pie and memories. Zara refilled sugar dispensers on autopilot, her rejection letter burning a hole in her back pocket. The bell above the door chimed. She looked up to see a man in an expensive overcoat, silver hair perfectly styled despite Oakland's wind, out of place as a peacock in a parking lot. Thomas Whitmore slid into booth 7, studying the laminated menu like it contained state secrets. Coffee, sir? Zara approached with her professional smile intact. He looked up. Recognition flashed across pale blue eyes. You're the young woman from Tuesday night, the umbrella. Heat crept up Zara's neck. Oh, right. How are you feeling? You looked pretty soaked. Thanks to your kindness, I made it home safely. Thomas gestured to the seat across from him. Please, sit for a moment. I'm working. Jimmy, Thomas called toward the kitchen. Mind if I borrow your waitress for 5 minutes? Jimmy poked his head out, flour dusting his apron. Sure thing, mister. Zara, take your break. Zara slid into the booth, suspicious. Rich men didn't frequent Murphy's diner. Rich men definitely didn't remember waitresses who'd helped them once. Thomas Whitmore, he said, extending his hand. And you are? Zara Thompson. His handshake was firm, practiced. Whitmore. Why does that name sound familiar? Thomas's smile held secrets. My daughter runs a development company here in Oakland, Whitmore Industries. The sugar dispenser slipped from Zara's fingers. Whitmore Industries. The company behind half the luxury condos pricing families out of East Oakland, including the 7th Street project. I see you know our work, Thomas observed. Your daughter's displacing my neighbors. Victoria tends to focus on profit margins over people. Something sad flickered across his features. We don't always agree on business philosophy. Zara studied his face. Expensive suit, Rolex watch, shoes that cost more than her monthly rent. But his eyes held genuine regret. Why are you here, Mr. Whitmore? That umbrella Tuesday night, you had somewhere important to be. Job interview. Zara's voice went flat. Didn't work out. I'm sorry to hear that. What kind of work? City planning, community development. She laughed bitterly. Apparently, I have character concerns. Thomas frowned. Character concerns? That seems unusual. Tell me about it. He was quiet for a long moment, studying her hands wrapped around her coffee cup. Working hands, honest hands. Zara, my family hosts a charity gala next Saturday. Bay Area Community Foundation. Lot of city officials attend. Planning commissioners, developers, people with influence. He pulled out an embossed card. Would you consider coming as my guest? Zara stared at the invitation. Gold lettering, heavy cardstock. The kind of event she'd only seen in magazines. I don't understand. You sacrificed your comfort for a stranger. That tells me more about your character than any background check. Thomas stood, leaving a $20 bill on the table for a $5 coffee. The gala might provide opportunities to network. Ask questions about that job rejection. Mr. Whitmore, I appreciate the gesture, but I don't belong in that world. My dear, kindness belongs everywhere, especially where it's needed most. He headed toward the door, then paused. The event is formal. If you need anything, dress, transportation, my assistant can arrange it. No strings attached. Why would you help me? Thomas smiled, and for a moment looked less like a businessman, more like someone's grandfather. Because sometimes the universe sends us exactly the person we need to remember who we used to be. The door chimed behind him, leaving Zara holding an invitation to a world she'd only glimpsed from the outside. A world where decisions were made about people like her by people like them. Maybe it was time to see power up close. Saturday morning found Zara standing outside Nordstrom, Thomas's assistant's business card trembling in her hand. 3 hours until the gala. Zero idea how to navigate designer dresses or high society. Ms. Thompson? A woman in her 50s approached, perfectly coiffed and radiating efficiency. I'm Helen, Mr. Whitmore's assistant. Shall we find you something stunning? The personal shopper treated Zara like visiting royalty, pulling gowns in midnight blue, forest green, deep burgundy. Zara chose simple black, classic, understated, impossible to get wrong. Excellent choice, Helen approved, arranging for alterations. Now, shoes and accessories. By 4 p.m., Zara barely recognized herself. The dress fit like it was made for her body. Subtle jewelry caught light without screaming for attention. Hair swept up, makeup professionally applied but natural. You look beautiful, Helen said simply. Remember, you belong there as much as anyone else. The town car felt like a spaceship compared to Oakland's buses. Through tinted windows, Zara watched the city transform from working-class neighborhoods to manicured estates perched in the hills. The Claremont Hotel rose before them like a palace. Valets in white gloves helped guests from luxury cars. Women in gowns worth more than Zara's annual salary glided up marble steps. Thomas waited in the lobby, distinguished in his tuxedo. You look radiant, he said, offering his arm. Ready to meet Oakland's power brokers? The ballroom took Zara's breath away. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbows across marble floors. Silent auction displays showcased vacation packages to places she'd only seen in movies. The mayor posed for photos with tech executives and real estate moguls. Overwhelming? Thomas asked. It's like watching a documentary about rich people, except I'm accidentally in it. He laughed. That's exactly how I felt at my first gala. Stick close. I'll introduce you to people who matter. They moved through the crowd like diplomats. Thomas knew everyone, city council members, philanthropists, developers whose names appeared on half of Oakland's construction signs. He introduced Zara as a brilliant young urbanist with fresh perspectives on community development. Zara Thompson, she said, shaking hands with Oakland's housing commissioner. Nice to meet you. Thompson, that name sounds familiar. Did you apply for our planning analyst position? Heat flushed her cheeks. I did. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. Character concerns, wasn't it? The commissioner's expression was unreadable. Strange. We don't usually see issues like that with qualified candidates. Before Zara could respond, Thomas guided her away. "Let's get some air," he murmured. On the hotel's terrace, Oakland's lights sparkled below them. The view from this height made problems look small, manageable. "That was awkward," Zara said. "Actually, it was informative. The housing commissioner knows about your rejection. That suggests the decision came from higher up." Thomas studied her face. "Who else interviewed you?" "Margaret Santos, David Kim, Janet Rodriguez." Standard panel. "But the character concerns language. That's unusual. Almost like someone wanted to block you specifically." "But why? I've never even met most of these people." "Victoria." Thomas's voice brightened as a woman approached. Elegant, mid-40s, commanding presence in emerald green. "I'd like you to meet Zara Thompson." Victoria Whitmore was stunning in the way powerful women often were. Sharp intelligence behind beautiful features, confidence worn like expensive perfume. She extended a manicured hand. "Ms. Thompson, Father told me about your act of kindness Tuesday night." "Just doing what anyone would do." "I disagree. Most people prioritize self-interest." Victoria's smile was calculating. "He mentioned you work in urban planning?" "Trying to. The job market's competitive." "Indeed. I'm always interested in fresh perspectives on development. What's your take on Oakland's housing crisis?" Zara straightened. This was her language. "The crisis isn't lack of housing. It's lack of affordable housing in neighborhoods where people can actually build lives. Most new development serves commuters, not communities." "Interesting. And your solution?" "Mixed-income projects with genuine community input. Not token meetings where decisions are already made, but collaborative design processes. People who live somewhere understand how it works better than consultants who drive through once." Victoria's eyes sharpened. "You sound critical of current development practices." "I'm critical of development that treats neighborhoods like blank slates instead of living ecosystems. The 7th Street project, for instance, luxury condos that ignore existing community needs. The 7th Street project will bring jobs and tax revenue. For whom? The families being displaced won't benefit from jobs that require college degrees they can't afford. The tax revenue will fund services in wealthy areas while East Oakland still lacks basic infrastructure." Other guests had drifted closer, drawn by the intensity of their conversation. Victoria seemed to enjoy the attention. "You make valid points," Victoria said carefully. "What would you do differently?" Zara felt the spotlight of powerful attention. "Preserve affordable units through community land trusts. Require developers to partner with local hiring programs. Design retail space for existing small businesses, not chain stores that extract wealth from neighborhoods." "Idealistic but impractical," someone murmured from the crowd. "Actually, it's been proven in Portland and Minneapolis," Zara replied. "Both cities have inclusionary zoning that works when it's properly funded and enforced." Victoria smiled, genuine this time. "You've clearly done your homework." "I live there. It's not homework, it's survival." The crowd had grown quiet, sensing something significant happening. Victoria seemed to make a decision. "Ms. Thompson, would you be interested in consulting for Whitmore Industries? We are always looking for community perspectives on development projects." Thomas beamed beside her. Zara felt the room's energy shift. This was how deals got made, connections formed, futures decided. "I'd be honored to discuss it." "Excellent. Let's schedule lunch next week. I suspect we could learn from each other." Victoria handed her a business card. "My assistant will call you Monday." As Victoria moved away, Thomas squeezed Zara's shoulder. "Well done. You just impressed one of the most influential developers in Oakland." Zara watched Victoria work the room, stopping to chat with city officials, tech executives, and philanthropists. Everyone wanted her attention. Everyone smiled when she spoke. She seems intense. Victoria's brilliant, sometimes ruthlessly so, but if she's interested in your perspective, that could open doors. Driving home through Oakland's late-night quiet, Zara felt the evening's possibilities settling around her like expensive fabric. A consulting opportunity, direct access to power, maybe the beginning of real change. But something nagged at her. Victoria's questions had felt like an interview, and her smile, while charming, never quite reached her eyes. Still, doors were opening. For the first time in months, the future felt larger than Murphy's Diner. Monday's rain drummed against floor-to-ceiling windows in Victoria Whitmore's downtown office. Zara had never seen Oakland from the 42nd floor. The city spread below like an urban planning textbook, neighborhoods she knew by heart reduced to geometric patterns. "Impressive view," Victoria said, settling behind a glass desk that probably cost more than Zara's yearly rent. "Coffee? It's imported from Guatemala, single origin, direct trade." "Thank you." The porcelain cup felt fragile in Zara's working hands. "I've been thinking about our conversation Saturday night, your insights on community-centered development." Victoria opened a leather portfolio. "I'd like to offer you a consulting contract. 20 hours a week, reviewing our Oakland projects for community impact." Zara nearly choked on her coffee. "Seriously? $40 an hour, flexible schedule to accommodate your other work." Victoria slid a contract across the desk. "We need authentic community voices in our planning process." $800 a week, more than Zara made at Murphy's in a month. She scanned the contract, straightforward terms, reasonable deadlines. This is incredibly generous. Self-interest, really. Our projects succeed when communities embrace them. Your perspective helps us avoid costly mistakes. Victoria leaned forward, conspiratorial. "Between us, I'd also like to help with your city planning career. That rejection was unfortunate." "You know about that?" "Oakland's development community is small. News travels." Victoria's expression showed concern. "Character concerns, such vague language. Almost like someone wanted to block you without leaving fingerprints." "You think someone had deliberately sabotaged my application?" "It's possible. You asked hard questions about the 7th Street project during your interview. Some people don't appreciate scrutiny." Victoria stood, pacing to the window. "I have connections in city planning. Let me make some calls, see what I can discover." Relief flooded Zara's chest. An ally with power, resources, influence. "Why would you help me?" "Because talent deserves opportunity. And frankly, the planning department needs fresh thinking." Victoria smiled warmly. "Start next Monday? I'll have my assistant send project files for your review." Walking back to Murphy's, Zara felt lighter than she had in months. Steady income, professional respect, a path back to her planning career. The city looked different from sidewalk level, not geometric patterns but living neighborhoods. Places she'd soon help improve through thoughtful, community-centered development. For the first time since the rejection letter, the future felt bright. Maybe umbrella-sharing kindness really did come back around. 3 weeks into her consulting work, Zara felt like she was living someone else's life. Professional meetings in glass towers. Input valued, opinions respected. Victoria's assistant scheduled her like she mattered. But tonight's Oakland City Council meeting reminded her why she'd chosen planning in the first place. The council chamber buzzed with nervous energy. Folding chairs packed with 7th Street residents, Mrs. Martinez clutching eviction notices, Carlos and his construction crew still in work clothes, families whose Spanish mixed with English in worried whispers. "Public comment period," announced Council President Williams. 3 minutes per speaker. Zara had registered to speak, using her new consulting credentials to add weight to her words. She stood when her name was called, approaching the microphone with her neighborhood sketches and 3 weeks of Whitmore Industries research. "Good evening. I'm Zara Thompson, urban planning consultant. I'm here to address the 7th Street development project. Victoria sat in the developer section, watching with an unreadable expression. This project displaces 12 families to build luxury condos for tech commuters, Zara continued. But affordable alternatives exist. Community land trusts could preserve housing while allowing neighborhood investment. Mixed-income development could serve existing residents and newcomers. She held up her sketches, the same designs she'd shown Victoria. These aren't just drawings, they're blueprints for development that builds communities instead of destroying them. Murmurs of approval rippled through the crowd. Mrs. Martinez nodded. Carlos gave a thumbs up. The developer claims community input was gathered, but I've reviewed the meeting notes. 2 sessions, poorly advertised, scheduled during work hours. That's not engagement. It's theater. Victoria's jaw tightened. Oakland deserves development that serves Oakland families. Thank you. Applause erupted from the resident section. Zara returned to her seat, heart pounding but proud, using her voice for people who rarely got heard. Victoria approached as the meeting adjourned. Interesting presentation. Community-centered development like we discussed. Indeed. Victoria's smile was ice. Let's talk. They stepped outside, away from the crowd streaming toward buses and cars. Victoria's composure had shifted. Less mentor, more predator. That was quite a performance, Zara. Performance? Your passionate defense of community interests. Very moving. Victoria's voice dripped condescension. Of course, it puts me in an awkward position. Zara felt the first twist of unease. How so? Whitmore Industries has significant investments in the 7th Street project. Your public opposition to our development creates complications. The words hit like cold water. Your development? Did you think we only built wealthy neighborhoods? Luxury markets have limited growth potential. The real money is in gentrification, buying low, building high, selling to professionals desperate for authentic urban living. Zara's consulting work flashed through her mind, projects she'd reviewed, communities she'd unknowingly helped displace. You used my research to improve your displacement strategies. Your insights were invaluable. Who better to understand community vulnerabilities than someone from the community? Betrayal burned in Zara's throat. I trusted you. Business isn't personal, Zara, though I admit, tonight's speech was unexpected. Victoria stepped closer, her voice dropping. Which brings us to your employment situation. What about it? Those character concerns that blocked your city planning application? They didn't materialize naturally. Victoria's smile was razor-sharp. I made some calls, shared concerns about a candidate who might be disruptive to productive developer-city partnerships. The world tilted. You sabotaged my application? I protected my interests. Your interview answers showed dangerous idealism. Community land trusts, inclusionary zoning, affordable housing mandates, policies that threaten profitable development. So you destroyed my career to protect your profits? I redirected your career toward more suitable opportunities. The consulting work, my mentorship, I was providing alternatives. Rage built behind Zara's ribs. You blocked my dream job, then offered me crumbs to make yourself feel better? I offered you real money and professional connections, more than you'd have earned in government bureaucracy. Victoria's voice hardened. But tonight's performance suggests you lack proper gratitude. Gratitude for being used, for being elevated beyond your circumstances. Victoria pulled out her phone. Which brings me to an important decision you need to make. She showed Zara the screen, a draft email to the city planning department. After careful consideration, I must withdraw my previous recommendation regarding Ms. Thompson's consulting work. Recent behavior suggests character issues that make her unsuitable for public service roles. One phone call eliminates any chance of future planning work in Oakland, Victoria said. Your name gets quietly blacklisted. No one will hire you for anything more complex than serving coffee. Zara's hands shook with fury. You can't. I absolutely can. Unless we reach an understanding. What kind of understanding? You stop attending council meetings. Stop advocating against developments that benefit the city's economic growth. Focus your consulting work on projects that don't conflict with Whitmore Industries' interests. Victoria's voice turned almost gentle. Continue being my bright, talented consultant. Keep earning real money. Stay in your lane. The choice crystallized with ugly clarity. Submit to blackmail or lose everything she'd worked toward. And if I refuse, then you'll spend the rest of your career wondering what might have been. No planning work, no consulting contracts, no professional future. Just Murphy's Diner until you're too old to carry plates. Victoria stepped back, giving Zara space to consider. I don't want to destroy you, Zara. You're talented, intelligent, and passionate about your community. But passion without pragmatism is just noise. Cars pulled away from the council building. Families who'd spoken tonight about losing their homes, trusting the government to protect them. Mrs. Martinez had thanked Zara personally. The first time anyone in power had listened. Those people in there deserve someone fighting for them, Zara said quietly. Those people will be fine. Oakland's full of affordable housing in other neighborhoods. You mean poorer neighborhoods, further from jobs, transit, opportunities. I mean neighborhoods appropriate to their economic circumstances. The mask was completely off now. Victoria wasn't a mentor or ally. She was the system Zara had spent years studying, the machine that ground communities into profit margins. I won't be your token community voice, Zara said. And I won't stay silent while you destroy my neighbors' homes. Victoria sighed like a disappointed parent. That's unfortunate. You're choosing poverty over pragmatism. I'm choosing principle over profit. Same thing, really. Victoria walked toward her Tesla. Enjoy Murphy's Diner, Zara. I suspect you'll be there longer than expected. Shay. Whitmore Family Estate, dining room. Sunday evening. Crystal glasses caught candlelight as Thomas carved the roast, a weekly ritual that usually brought him joy. But tonight, Victoria's phone buzzed constantly against the mahogany table. Popular evening, he observed. Just business. Victoria silenced another call. The 7th Street project is moving to final approval. Lots of moving pieces. How's that young woman, Zara Thompson, still consulting for you? Victoria's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Actually, that arrangement ended. Creative differences. Creative differences? She had some naive ideas about development priorities. Sweet girl, but not practical for serious business. Thomas set down his carving knife. Naive ideas like affordable housing. Among other things. Victoria's voice carried dismissive ease. She spoke at last week's city council meeting, opposing the very project I hired her to consult on. Conflict of interest, obviously. She opposed your project? Father, you can't run a successful business by catering to every sentimental neighborhood concern. Development requires difficult decisions. And her city planning career? Last I heard, she'd been rejected from that municipal position. Victoria shrugged. Character concerns, according to the hiring committee. Something in her tone made Thomas study his daughter's face. The same expression she'd worn as a child when caught in lies, too casual, slightly defensive. Character concerns about a young woman who gives umbrellas to strangers in the rain? You don't know her like I do. But Thomas was beginning to suspect he didn't know Victoria like he thought he did. Thomas's home office. Late night. Sleep eluded Thomas. He sat in his study, laptop open, researching Oakland City contracts. 40 years in business had taught him to read between lines, follow money trails, spot patterns. What he found made his stomach turn. Whitmore Industries had won 12 development contracts in 18 months, all in neighborhoods undergoing rapid demographic change, all requiring minimal affordable housing components, all approved despite community opposition. He cross-referenced city planning staff changes. 3 community advocates had left the department citing philosophical differences. 2 neighborhood organizers had been arrested on questionable charges during protests, and Zara Thompson, rejected for character concerns despite stellar qualifications. The pattern was unmistakable. Victoria wasn't just developing properties, she was systematically removing obstacles to gentrification. Thomas opened his desk drawer, retrieved the umbrella Zara had given him, still damp from Tuesday night's rain, 3 weeks later. A reminder of kindness in a world increasingly defined by calculation. His daughter had become someone he didn't recognize. Murphy's Diner. Tuesday morning. Zara looked up from wiping tables to see Thomas in booth 7, coffee growing cold as he stared at documents spread across the Formica surface. "Mr. Whitmore? You okay?" "Actually, no." His voice carried a weight she hadn't heard before. "May I speak with you privately?" Jimmy nodded toward the back office. "Take 5, Zara." Behind closed doors, Thomas looked older, diminished. "I owe you an apology." "For what?" "For my daughter." He slid a folder across the desk. "I've been researching Oakland development patterns. What I found, it's not the business I thought we were running." Zara opened the folder. City contracts, approval timelines, correspondence between Whitmore Industries and planning officials. Her rejection letter clipped to emails discussing problematic candidates. "She blocked my application?" "And others. Community advocates. Anyone who might oppose profitable developments." Thomas's hands shook slightly. "I built Whitmore Industries to create value, not destroy communities. Victoria has turned it into something else entirely." Zara read through emails discussing her as a disruptive influence and threat to productive partnerships. Her consulting work is described as intelligence gathering on community vulnerabilities. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I'm ashamed, and because you deserve allies, not obstacles." Thomas met her eyes. "I want to help you fight this." "You want to fight your own daughter?" "I want to fight corruption that happens to involve my daughter." His voice strengthened. "Victoria has city officials, development contracts, political connections. But I have 40 years of business relationships and intimate knowledge of how she operates." Zara studied the documents. Names, dates, financial flows, evidence of systematic manipulation. "What are you proposing?" "Partnership. You understand the communities being harmed. I understand the business mechanisms causing that harm." Thomas leaned forward. "Together we can expose what she's doing." "This could destroy your family." "My family is already destroyed. I just didn't want to see it." He picked up the umbrella from beside his chair. "A wise young woman once told me everyone deserves shelter. I'm ready to provide some." Hope flickered in Zara's chest for the first time since the council meeting. An ally with resources, access, motivation. "What do you need me to do?" "Help me understand what justice looks like. Then let's build it together." Whitmore Industries boardroom. Friday, 2 p.m. Victoria paced behind floor-to-ceiling windows, Oakland spread below like a chessboard she'd been winning for years. Emergency board meetings meant crisis management, damage control, strategic repositioning. Today felt different, urgent, necessary. "Ladies and gentlemen," she addressed the 12 board members around the polished mahogany table, "I've called this meeting to address serious concerns about my father's recent judgment lapses and their impact on company operations." Board Chairman Harrison Way adjusted his glasses. "Thomas has served this company with distinction for 40 years, which is precisely the problem." Victoria clicked her presentation remote. Professional slides filled the wall screen. "Age-related cognitive decline affects 34% of executives over 70. Recent studies from Harvard Business Review confirm that emotional decision-making increases dramatically with advanced age. Images flashed across the screen. Thomas at charity events, conversations with local activists, the umbrella incident captured by a building security camera. My father has been making increasingly erratic business decisions, Victoria continued, voice carrying practiced authority. Emotional investments in unprofitable community programs, sentimental attachments that threaten shareholder value. He's developed inappropriate relationships with community agitators who actively oppose our development projects. Board member Sarah Lane frowned. Thomas has always prioritized community relations. Community relations, yes. Community manipulation of business decisions, no. Victoria advanced to her next slide, financial projections showing decreased profits. His interference has cost us 2 major contracts this quarter. He's been feeding sensitive information to neighborhood activists who use it against our interests. Murmurs rippled around the table. James Park leaned forward. These are serious allegations, Victoria. Which is why I'm recommending we remove him from the advisory board effective immediately, for the protection of shareholder interests and company reputation. The boardroom doors exploded open. Thomas strode in, flanked by Zara and 6 Oakland residents. Mrs. Martinez still in her house-cleaning uniform, Carlos in concrete-stained work clothes, families whose Spanish mixed with English in nervous whispers. Media followed like a flood. Chronicle reporters, KTVU cameras, local activists live streaming on phones held high. Victoria, Thomas said with calm authority, I believe we need to have a more complete conversation about character and business ethics. Victoria's face was drained of color. This is a private board meeting. About public corruption, Zara replied, setting a laptop on the polished conference table. Which makes it very much a public concern. Mrs. Martinez stepped forward, voice shaking but determined. My name is Rosa Martinez. I've cleaned offices in this building for 15 years. Whitmore Industries is trying to steal my home with lies and bribes. Security! Victoria lunged for her phone, but Thomas raised his hand. Let them speak, Victoria. It's time this board heard about the business we're really running. Harrison Way studied the unexpected crowd. Thomas, what exactly is this about? Corporate fraud, municipal bribery, systematic displacement of low-income communities through illegal manipulation of city planning processes. Thomas opened his own laptop, fingers steady despite his age. Victoria, would you like to explain these email exchanges with city officials? The wall screen filled with correspondence. Victoria's messages discussing problematic candidates, payment schedules disguised as consulting fees, strategic plans for neutralizing community opposition through targeted pressure. Board member James Park read aloud. Zara Thompson's background investigation reveals multiple leverage points. Community ties and financial vulnerabilities make her susceptible to employment pressure. He looked up, horrified. Victoria, did you systematically blacklist qualified job applicants? I protected legitimate company interests against radical activists? By bribing public officials? Zara clicked on banking records. Wire transfers to Planning Commissioner David Kim's personal account totaling $47,000. Consulting payments to Margaret Santos that precisely coincide with project approval dates. Monthly retainer fees to Janet Rodriguez disguised as community outreach expenses. The evidence scrolled past like an indictment. Payment schedules, email confirmations, bank routing numbers that connected Whitmore Industries to every corrupt decision affecting Oakland's affordable housing. Victoria's professional composure began cracking. You don't understand the complex realities of development politics in California. I understand criminal enterprise, Carlos interrupted, stepping forward. And this is organized crime in business suits. Sarah Lane studied the financial documents on her tablet. Victoria, these allegations suggest systematic corruption spanning multiple city departments. They're fabrications! Victoria's voice rose toward hysteria. Disgruntled community members making false accusations against a successful company. Against documented bank transfers. Thomas pulled up additional files. Federal banking records showing systematic payoffs. Email threads explicitly discussing character assassination of planning candidates who might oppose profitable developments. Chronicle reporter Michelle Santos scribbled notes rapidly. Ms. Whitmore, these documents suggest a criminal conspiracy involving municipal corruption, housing discrimination, and fraudulent business practices. This is an orchestrated attack. Victoria's mask of professionalism shattered completely. My own father colluding with radical community agitators to destroy the family business I've spent years building. The family business was supposed to serve communities, not exploit them, Thomas replied with infinite sadness. When did we become predators instead of builders, Victoria? When we started prioritizing sentimentality over sustainable business practices. Victoria whirled toward the community members. Those neighborhoods needed economic improvement. They needed investment, not displacement. Mrs. Martinez's voice carried decades of frustration. You destroyed 12 families' homes to build condos that cost more than we earn in 10 years. Market forces determine housing prices. Manipulation determines housing access. Zara's voice carried the authority of years studying urban economics. Community land trusts, inclusionary zoning, local hiring requirements, proven solutions that create shared prosperity instead of extracting wealth from vulnerable populations. Victoria looked around the boardroom, seeing expressions of shock, disgust, moral revulsion on faces that had trusted her leadership for years. You have no comprehension of what it takes to run a profitable development company in this regulatory environment, she said desperately. Community concerns don't fund payrolls or generate returns for pension funds. Neither does federal prison, Harrison Way said quietly, which appears to be where this evidence suggests you may be headed. The words fell like a gavel in the silent room. Outside, car horns honked in synchronized rhythm, the community rally that had gathered when news spread through social media networks. Chants filtered through reinforced windows. Housing justice now! Housing justice now! Victoria walked to the windows, staring down at the crowd. Hundreds of families she'd been systematically displacing, workers whose livelihoods she'd eliminated, activists she'd tried to silence through intimidation, all holding signs with her company logo crossed out in red marker. The board will need to conduct a thorough investigation, Harrison announced formally. Victoria, I'm immediately suspending your executive authority pending completion of federal and state inquiries. You cannot. I built this company's market success. You built a criminal conspiracy, Sarah Lane corrected, using our corporate reputation as cover for systematic corruption. Media cameras captured everything. Victoria's public meltdown, Thomas's dignified anguish, Zara standing between opposing worlds with evidence that would reshape Oakland's development future. Oakland City Hall, council chambers. 3 weeks later. The same folding chairs that had held nervous families now hosted celebrations. Mrs. Martinez sat in the front row, no longer clutching eviction notices but holding her grandson's hand as he colored pictures of their apartment building. Motion to approve the Community Housing Preservation Act, Council President Williams announced. All in favor? 7 hands rose unanimously. Applause erupted from packed galleries. Zara watched from the staff section, wearing a crisp blazer with a city planning badge clipped to her collar. 3 weeks since Victoria's arrest, 2 weeks since starting as Oakland's new community planning coordinator, 1 week since her first community meeting where residents actually listened instead of fought. The federal investigation had moved swiftly. Victoria faced charges for municipal corruption, housing discrimination, and fraudulent business practices. David Kim and Margaret Santos had resigned in disgrace. Janet Rodriguez was cooperating with prosecutors in exchange for reduced charges. But tonight was about building, not destroying. Ms. Thompson, Council President Williams called out, would you like to address the community about implementation? Zara approached the same microphone where she'd once stood as a concerned citizen. Now she spoke with official authority, but the same passion burned in her voice. The Community Housing Preservation Act creates Oakland's first comprehensive anti-displacement program, she began. Community land trusts will preserve affordability permanently. Local hiring requirements ensure neighborhood residents benefit from development projects. And most importantly, every proposed development requires genuine community input before approval. Carlos raised his hand from the audience. What happens to families already displaced by Whitmore Industries? Federal settlement funds will provide relocation assistance and down payment support for qualifying families to return to their neighborhoods, Zara replied. Justice delayed shouldn't mean justice denied. More applause. Mrs. Martinez wiped tears from her eyes. After the meeting, Zara found Thomas waiting by the marble steps. At 73, he looked lighter somehow. The weight of moral compromise finally lifted from his shoulders. Proud grandfather moment, he said, embracing her warmly. You're not my grandfather. Honorary grandfather. It's different. He pulled the familiar umbrella from his briefcase. I believe this belongs to you, full circle. Zara accepted it, running her fingers along the worn handle. Keep it. You might need shelter again someday. From storms of my own making? From any storms at all. She smiled. Everyone deserves protection, Mr. Whitmore. Even stubborn old men who do the right thing when it costs everything. Thomas laughed, the sound of someone who'd found his way back to himself. In that case, I'll treasure it. Above them, Oakland's city lights sparkled like promises kept. Communities preserved, families protected, justice served with a side of genuine change. Some umbrellas protect bodies from rain. Others protect souls from regret. Tonight, both were safe and dry. Fruitvale Community Center, 6 months later. The meeting room buzzed with productive energy. 40 residents crowded around folding tables, studying architectural plans for the new mixed-income development on 7th Street. Where luxury condos once threatened displacement, community-designed housing would soon rise. Zara stood at the front, no longer the waitress who gave away umbrellas or the consultant manipulated by power. She was Oakland's community planning coordinator, facilitating conversations that actually mattered. The ground floor retail spaces are reserved for existing neighborhood businesses, she explained, pointing to detailed drawings. Mrs. Martinez, your son's mechanic shop gets first priority for the corner unit. Rosa Martinez beamed, her grandson drawing pictures of apartment buildings in crayon. Mija, you kept your promise. Carlos raised his hand. Timeline for construction jobs? Hiring starts next month. Local residents get training programs and first consideration for all positions. Zara smiled. We're not just building housing, we're building community wealth. The umbrella sat propped against the wall, now a symbol rather than necessity. Thomas had returned it one final time with a note. For the next storm that needs weathering. Outside, Oakland's evening lights reflected off rain-washed streets. Somewhere, another act of unexpected kindness was creating ripples that would reshape someone's tomorrow. True character shows when you're losing, not winning. But sometimes, choosing to lose everything leads to gaining what truly matters. What small act of kindness could you do today that might change someone's world? Drop a comment below sharing how kindness has impacted your life, and subscribe for more stories of ordinary people creating extraordinary change.
At Black Voices Uncut, we don't polish away the pain or water down the message. We tell it like it is because the truth deserves nothing less. If today's story spoke to you, click like, join the conversation in the comments, and subscribe so you'll be here for the next Uncut Voice.